The borderline personality disorder is one that is often misunderstood. Characterized as
I am crazier
by mainstream, it conjures visions of Fatal Attraction, where Glenn Close plays a woman scorned and seeks revenge. Like most media representations, this isn't actually reflective of reality. So, a person with borderline personality disorder, or BPD, so I don't have to constantly say the whole thing, is suffering from some pretty strong issues around loss, abandonment, and trauma.
What?
Here's what our trusty DSM, Diagnostical and Statistical Manual, say is involved. Frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. A pattern of unstable and intense relationships characterized by extremes of ideation and then devaluation. You're the best. You're the worst. Identity disturbance. Maybe they themselves aren't sure who they are. Impulsivity in potentially self-damaging kinds of areas like eating, sex, spending, etc. Recurrent suicidal gestures, threats, or self-mutilation. Marked reactivity of mood. So, who you have in the morning isn't necessarily who you get in the afternoon and isn't necessarily who comes to dinner. Chronic feelings of emptiness. Inappropriate or intense anger, difficulty of controlling anger, so recurrent fights, frequent anger displays. Transient, stress-related paranoid ideation or severe dissociation of symptoms. In other words, this is a person with serious issues around trust, can literally black out from the stress and even continue doing things which they may not remember later.
Lord have mercy.
Now this all sounds very dramatic. Because it is. Folks with BPD are the very definition of drama. Typically, as a person who is confronted by someone who has this, you'll have a weird sense of confusion. It's like you're being pulled in but pushed away at the very same time. A person with BPD is also usually very engaging. They can be charming, charismatic. But the dark side to this, as you feel compelled to interact, you'll also try to start living up to the standards that they set, which may vary from time to time.
It's not for everybody to understand all the time.
People with BPD typically have some very profound trauma, and it's often sexual in nature. While young, they were used and cast away with no sense of value that was attached to them. This instability, along with a search for meaning in themselves, creates a person who is incredibly charming, loving, frustrating, combative, and abusive.
Damn!
Yes, that's all in an afternoon. As a person who thinks they may have borderline personality disorder, you should get help. A good therapist is going to be able to help you wrap boundaries around yourself and minimize the harm that you're doing to yourself or others.
Yay!
If you think you're living with somebody who has BPD, well, first, keep calm and carry on. This isn't the end of the world, despite what the afflicted may have you believe. You have to set clear boundaries and stick with them. Basically, like you would with anybody else, but you benefit from being a little more clear and a lot more thoughtful about the implementation of those boundaries and with them. That clarity and honesty can be difficult at times, especially if you're put under a lot of pressure right then to have an answer for something you may not have an answer for. But retain those boundaries and be willing to talk about it later on if necessary. Remember that another person's emergency is something you need to consider, but not take on.
It's not all about you.